Hi guys, I've been taking a look at the latest Stats New Zealand migration statistics and I can't help but think that New Zealand is on a seriously treacherous path. Now the reason that I think this can be seen on this chart that can be found in the Stats New Zealand June release, and there's a link in the description if you want to have a look at it yourself. At first glance the news looks positive as the net migration gain has dropped back to a still historically high number of 21,300, but at least it's down from the insanely high number of 135,500 which was seen in October 2023. But we all know who caused that period of insanity, don't we? You know, the empathetic one with the sinister smile. By sinister, I mean the type of smile where the mouth smiles but the eyes don't. You know that fake smile that you see so often on politicians? So just to prove that 21,300 is still high historically, here is the historic net migration figures. As you can see, it was 2014 when the floodgates were opened. I mean, how else could John Key get his phony rockstar economy that was built firmly on the back of an ever-increasing housing Ponzi fueled by mass immigration? But what really depresses me about this latest release is the number of New Zealand citizens departing and the fact that it is only because so many are leaving that the net migration looks a bit more reasonable. Now this is very, very bad news for New Zealand. 70,600 Kiwi citizens have decided that New Zealand cannot offer them what they need to lead a happy, fulfilled life. It does not take a genius to work out what the problems are. There are quite a few, and all of them have been created by bad governance and bad management. It's been clear for many years that the leaders don't care if young Kiwis leave, as they can just be replaced by new people. It is as though being a Kiwi means nothing to the leaders of New Zealand. Where is the loyalty to your own people? God forbid if there was ever a war, the government would not think twice about calling on those very same young Kiwis who they seem to not care about to protect the borders and go and fight for the rich person's assets. It's insane. So I believe that it is about time that the New Zealand government came to its senses and started realising that the New Zealand people are an incredible asset and they should be doing everything in their power to make New Zealand a place where so many people don't feel like they have to leave. The blindingly obvious easiest way of doing this is to decrease the cost of living. And because New Zealand housing costs have been so insanely warped over the last couple of decades in favour of rich asset holders, then bringing down house prices and rent prices would immediately stop many Kiwis leaving. Bringing down the cost of housing would also save billions of taxpayers' dollars that are currently being wasted on landlord tax breaks and the landlord charity accommodation supplement. Don't for 1 minute think that this payment is meant to help the poor. All it does is help keep rents artificially inflated so more landlords benefit from the warping of the rental market. If housing costs come down, then more renters will be able to buy their own homes, which will mean that young people actually have a stake in New Zealand for once, instead of just feeling like all they are is prey to be fed on by the parasitic landlords. Also, if housing costs come down, more people will have more spare money to spend, which will boost the economy. There's no point giving rich asset holders more money as they will just lock it away buying up more and more and more assets. They're so laser focused on getting ahead of everyone else that nothing else matters to them. They're wasting their lives for greed. And I hope they don't still think that we all believe in the trickle-down effect. Surely they know that we know that's a scam. So here's a little clip that I made that shows what successive governments have been doing with their cruel open border policies over the last decade or so. Now for too long they've been throwing the poorest Kiwis under the bus just so the richest can get richer. So think of these 6 chairs as representing the finite number of dwellings in New Zealand. Then let's say there are 5 people representing the number of people in New Zealand in relation to the number of dwellings. You can see that when there are more dwellings than people, then these people will have a much better time of things. They will have more options to move around if they want, and supply and demand would mean that the housing costs would be lower. Now let's bring a new person into the mix. This is what Luxon is trying to do now. This will now add pressure to the housing market, which will push up housing costs and make it much harder for Kiwis to be able to move home if they wanted to or needed to. This limits options and is bad for Kiwis and bad for the overall health of the economy as people cannot move areas for work. Now let's add even another person into the mix, which is absolutely what Luxon wants to do. And is just like what every leader has done for over a decade. In this analogy, all this does is pushes one person off the seat and onto the floor. But in reality, it is wrecking New Zealand. It pushes up house prices and rent prices so the rich get richer. Yay for them. And how about the poorest? The guy forced onto the floor is not just forced onto the floor. In reality, he's forced into homelessness. And you only have to walk around every city in New Zealand to see that this problem is getting worse and worse as every day passes. And to see Luxon trying to rekindle this old, country-destroying failed policy by increasing the number of people moving into New Zealand with his new golden visas and parent boost visas make me feel like all could actually be lost, you know. Once again, he is ignoring why young Kiwis are leaving and heading straight for the John Key playbook of bringing in the masses to push up the prices. And for anyone who thinks that it'll be much better if Labour get in, just remember who ramped up immigration to record levels during her time in office, and remember who was her right-hand man during that whole disastrous period. Remember who also said she wants to see sustainable house price growth even after prices had shot up 30%. Remember who said that she didn't think ghost homes were a problem even though they massively were a problem and still are. Remember who said that she would never introduce a capital gains tax during her time in office. And why do you think she did that? And if you think that jolly little Chippy is not just a chip off Jacinda's old block, then I'm afraid you are sorely mistaken. The new Labour Liberal elite party cares for you just as much as all the other parties care for you. And unfortunately that means they do not care for you one bit. New Zealand needs a party for the worker, and this phony fake Labour party is definitely not it. And neither is this weird little coalition we've got going at the minute. Do you know what? I think if New Zealand could just have a party that cares for all of its citizens equally, and for once have a party who looks after the interests of its own poorer citizens more than the rich citizens from other countries, it seems insane that I actually have to say that, I know. And if this party could also start transforming the economy into something that does not revolve solely around a fire economy, and then if this party was able to care about protecting the incredible nature within New Zealand without having all the insane baggage that the Green Party has, then that would be a good start. Obviously, there are so many other issues that would need looking at, but even just fixing these 3 things would immediately start addressing many other problems. So guys, what do you all think? Does New Zealand need a new political party? Or can any of the parties that we currently have be turned around into something that actually puts the needs of the Kiwi worker first, and who can make New Zealand a place that young Kiwis don't feel the need to escape from anymore? And please let me know in the comments. Also, if you could, give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all on the next one. Cheers for that.